As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to give your comments and observations following introductory comments by the chair. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star and 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. Some of the statements in today's discussion may be forward-looking in nature and hence may involve risks and uncertainties. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Sunil Kakkar, Managing Director and CEO of IDFC Ltd. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nirav. Good morning to all of you. I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this pre-AGM conference call with the board and management of IDFC Ltd. Present on this call from the management side are our CFO, our CS, and myself. We also have the privilege of the board members of IDFC Ltd. And our financial holding company participating in this call. I welcome all the board members. The primary purpose of this call is to take on board your valuable feedback, inputs and comments. I would urge you to express your views, but please avoid repetition. As already shared by this moderator, some of the statements in today's interaction may be forward-looking in nature and hence may involve risks and uncertainties. I will now invite our chair, Mr. Vinod Rai, for his opening remarks. Mr. Chairman, sir.
Thank you, Sunil. And I would like to wish all our shareholders, directors, and the management a very good morning. To shareholders specifically, I really appreciate your taking time off to join us today in this informal pre-AGM meeting. I know you will have to take the same time off again for the AGM meeting. You're doing it twice. Thank you very much for agreeing to do so, because it helps us to get some guidance from you, get some viewpoints from you, get some suggestions from you, and that give us an opportunity to explain to you what the board has been doing over the last 3 to 4 years and where this entity stands as of today, of which you are shareholders. Now, we have received mails from shareholders also, and unfortunately we could not have a structured communication. We have interacted with some people, we have not been able to interact with some people, but today I'm really very happy that we have an opportunity for an informal discussion, which is not like an AGM kind of a discussion. Now, in today, if you will permit me 10 to 15 minutes, I propose to place before you the action taken by the board in the last 3-4 years, leading to the ending of the 5-year licensing condition, which ended on the 30th of September last year. And the actions taken have been to ensure that the double discount operating in the company is in some ways remedied. Now, you all know that the IDFC had a very complex corporate structure. What we inherited in the IDFC, the holding company, was that below the holding company, which is IDFC, there were 3 entities. One was the non-operational financial holding company, the other was the IDFC Projects, and the third was the IDFC Foundation. Now, in the FHC itself, there was the bank and the AMC. Then there was the IDFC Securities, and there was IDFC Alternatives, there was IDFC Capital, IDFC Trustees, IDFC Infrastructure Finance Limited, and then there was the VCF, the Category 3 AIF, etc. Added to all this were 3 entities, one in Singapore, one in USA, and one in Mauritius. Now, that was under the FHC. Now, another entity directly under the IDFC was the IDFC Projects. And the third was the IDFC Foundation. Now, it has taken us the last 3-4 years to try and uncomplicate this entire corporate structure, and we have managed to remove all the other entities excepting for obviously what we own today, the bank on one side, the AMC on the other side, and of course the third is the foundation. Believe me, it has been a huge task, especially to unwind structures which were under the Monetary Authority of Singapore in Singapore, to the Securities Commission in the USA, and the third was the Mauritius agency in Mauritius. It was very time consuming, it was a very complicated business, and multiple actions were required. But anyway, fortunately, all that is behind us, and today we have only the two operational agencies. One is the bank, the other is the AMC. Now, what we are grappling with today is the IDFC, the foundation. Now, foundation, as you are aware, has two entities under it, two joint ventures. One is with the government of Delhi, the other is with the government of Karnataka. We have been engaged, with these two governments, but before that, knowing that the licensing condition was coming to an end on 30th of September last year, we met with the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank on the 3rd of January itself last year, a good 9 months ahead of the licensing conditions terminating, seeking his advice as to how we should start preparing for the institution post the licensing conditions terminating. He advised us to write a letter. We wrote a letter to him, and that letter that we wrote to him seeking the guidance and permission of the RBI to start preparing for 30th September was linked with the internal working group that the RBI has set up on various issues. Now, you are aware that the working group gave its report sometime in December last year, and RBI put it out for comments till 15th of January. Now, we waited after January also, but unfortunately the RBI guidelines have still not come forth. So thanks to some active involvement with the RBI, engagement with the RBI, we managed to get ourselves extricated from that internal working group recommendation, and due to this constant dialogue, we have got a letter now saying that the promoter can, reduce his holding in the bank and other institutions. Now, knowing that we were engaging with the RBI sometime in October last year, immediately after the 30th September deadline, we started engaging with a security advisor to find out the details of disinvestment of our non-core activities, how we should be the roadmap ahead, what we should plan, and the single term of reference to the security advisor was maximization of shareholder value. He was supposed to give us a strategy, a roadmap where we are successful in maximizing shareholder value. And he did give us a lot of options. We have been debating the pros and cons of these actions. And just to enlighten you about the actions that the suggestions that the strategic advisor has given us, in the AGM, because unfortunately this call is only an audio call, in the AGM, when you will all be available on video, he will make a presentation about the shortlisted options that we have, and he will give you the pros and cons of those options also, so that you can kind of take a decision for yourself, give us some advice if you want, give us some... Now, meanwhile, before we get to that, I mentioned to you that we have received a large number of emails from you, and what you have sought in those emails is a divestment of an entity and a merger with another entity. Now, perfectly fine. That could be one of the options available. We will place all these options before you also. Now, you must be, we want to sensitize you about the fact that the strategic advisor, our legal advisors, and our tax consultants mentioned to us, that suppose we disinvest an entity as you have been wanting us to do, and we cash out, which means we distribute the revenues that we get from each of these. Each one of the shareholders, each one of you individually will have to pay a tax, and that tax rate could go up to anything up to 40%, but that's a liability which the shareholder has to meet. The other option is that after we have sold that entity, you have suggested that we merge with another entity. Now, if we have to merge with an entity, what is the attraction that we bring onto the table for that entity? If we have cashed out, if we have distributed all the revenue earned from the sale of one entity, there is no attraction to the entity to whom you have sought our merger, because there is no capital. See, every entity or a bank or anybody else requires capital to grow. And for that, if we do not have the capacity to provide them the capital, it will not in any way be an attraction to them. Now, that is not the only issue. What happens is, to a disinvestment, yes, the foundation is not a stumbling block. But if we have to go in for a merger, we cannot have a merger with the two joint ventures in the foundation still with us. So we have been engaged over, I must share with you that over the last 2 years as to how best we can disengage with these two entities which are under the foundation. Some of you may have read in the papers, and both these entities are with governments, state governments. As I mentioned earlier, one is the Delhi government, the other is the Karnataka government. Now, you must have read in the papers, or you must have heard that at one point of time, which was roughly about a year back, we managed to get an entity which was interested in taking over the foundation. It was a Calcutta-based company, and we had negotiated with them for more than 4 months or 6 months. This was about a year back. But unfortunately, one of the state governments felt shy of that company becoming their partner, because this is a 50% stakeholding of IDFC with the Delhi government and 50% stakeholding of the IDFC with the Karnataka government. So all those discussions, all those negotiations came to naught. We had to start all over again. Now, in the negotiations now, we have engaged, and I have personally engaged with the Karnataka government and the Delhi government, and I must mention to you that I see light at the end of the tunnel. The Delhi government has now been very positive, very proactive, very constructive. They have identified an agency to whom they would want the 50% of the IDFC shareholding to be transferred. We are in discussions with them. Even yesterday, our CFO was in a meeting with the Delhi government, and where they have shown very positive intent, and they have told us that by the end of the month, they will try and ensure that that entity is willing to take on our part of the shareholding. That's the Delhi government. The Karnataka government has also 1 or 2 options which they have indicated to us, and they have been very upfront and advised us. I spoke to them even yesterday, and they have advised us to give them a letter and also indicate the timeline within which we want a solution. So we are going to give them a very small time limit within which they must get back to us and ensure that the process of delinking this joint venture from the IDFC commences. Now, why I have taken the trouble your time to explain this to you is because if we disinvest and distribute all the cash, not having cash without disengaging these entities, not having the cash will lead to a very difficult situation, because the merger will not take place, and instead of adding value to shareholders, we will end up destroying value. And therefore, there is this urgency on our part to first clear the path for these two joint ventures to be disengaged from us, and then we move ahead. Now, you are all aware that IDFC by itself is not an operational unit. We have an AMC, which is not listed, but doing exceedingly well. And on the other hand, we have the bank, which is a listed entity. And even in these very difficult times, they have been doing exceedingly well. And all parameters at present, which the bank indicates, and it's all in public domain, is very good. So even the IDFC Limited, the stock of value of the IDFC Limited has mirrored that of the bank. If you see over the last 2 years, 3 years, you will find that it has mirrored, because IDFC by itself has no business. It's not operational. In fact, you will be surprised that your company, IDFC Limited today, contains only 6 employees. That's all that IDFC has. We have cut it down to the bare minimum because we are not operational. We have retained only that many people as are necessary as per the regulations laid down by the RBI. And number of people in the board or number of the people in the management are the bare minimum. Now, this is where we stand today, and I think we are now at the cusp of being able to disengage from these two joint ventures, which have been quite an issue for us. Let me informally say that this is actually some kind of a millstone. Unless we are not able to disengage from these, we will not be able to move forward to ensure the maximization of shareholder value and by getting to an optimal solution to the corporate structure of the entity. Now, this is what I wanted to enlighten you about. I'm sorry if I have taken more time than what I thought I would, but this is where we stand today. We are at the cusp of a solution. We are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We have engaged with the Delhi government and the Karnataka government. As I mentioned to you earlier, I'm personally engaging with them, and I have been personally assured that solutions that we are seeking, they are also seeking for it. And Delhi government, the timeline is much shorter. The Karnataka government also, I'm hoping, will be in the very immediate future that they will find the solution for us. And once we have that solution and we have embarked on the solution, we will keep you informed. We will keep you informed, and we will tell you that, look, these XYZ are the solutions for both the JVs. We'll keep you informed. And that is the time when we set about the job of ensuring one of the optimal solutions that the strategic advisor will be placing before you in the AGM. Now, that's where we stand, and I'm hoping that you will appreciate what the situation is. But at the same time, we will be very happy to receive your suggestions. Any solution which has escaped our attention, please share with us. If you are not able to do it today, write to us, and we will bounce it off strategic advisor or the legal advisor or the tax consultant to try and ensure that the most optimal solution, which is maximizing shareholder value, is ultimately implemented by the board. That's where I would like to end. I'll be very happy to receive your suggestions, and I leave it to the moderator to accommodate any questions, suggestions, or observations that we may receive. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you very much. We'll now open the floor for comments and observations. Anyone who wishes to speak may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while speaking. Please note, the format of this call entails participants speaking turn by turn, following which the chair will provide a response as well as a brief closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll wait for a moment while the queue assembles. Participants, you may press star and 1. The first participant is Martin from BAO BAD. Please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm Martin from BAO, and I'm begging your patience for 3 minutes to provide background before I ask my question. Since the merger in 2015, the cost of management and boards was close to 150 crores, whilst the delta between the Sensex and IDFC was 132%, and the absolute return minus 10%. No figure explains the reason for the deep trust deficit between investors and the board and management better than the out-of-pocket returns for the people of India. Because let's not forget that IDFC's largest shareholder is the government of India. For GOI, this delta means that they lost out on a staggering 1,870 crore. I request the board to consider the following background information. In 2019, at a routine meeting with the MD and CEO, Mr. Kakar, after he expressed his frustration about the disconnect between the fundamental and market value of IDFC Ltd, we offered to help and Mr. Kakar accepted. We engaged at our own cost with 3 professional firms and eventually formally presented to IDFC options for value unlocking. In follow-up discussions, the CEO raised concerns about the potential risk in the RBI's read on the situation. Therefore, we engaged with the RBI on several occasions. We've made it clear that there is a very low probability that the RBI will prove to be a spanner in the works. Of course, today we know that this is true. In August 2019, at the end of this very thorough process, we introduced one of these professional firms, a law firm, India's leading corporate restructuring, legal and tax expert, directly to the MD for evaluation and engagement. But the process was killed at the last minute when the MD declined to sign the engagement letter for inscrutable reasons. As was advised then, and what is still blatantly obvious today, the prime option is to sell the AMC and reverse merge without delay. We were told then and several times since by the MD that everything is under control and that there was nothing to worry about, including the foundation. And need I remind you, this was back in 2019. Yet here we are 2 years later in what we find to be a noxious situation where we have to stoop to this level of having to air our frustration publicly in order to bring about the obvious course of action. Hence, I propose the following. The board takes 4 weeks to deliberate and engage the banker with clear instructions to run an auction process to sell the AMC immediately. Considering the history with management, this regrettably carries an ultimatum. If it does not happen, we will reach out to other shareholders to gather the requisite votes and call an EGM to suggest changes, starting with the MD. The management team has lost all credibility, and we strongly urge the board to get external legal counsel to oversee the entire process and get the company ready for the reverse merger while solving any pending issues such as the foundation. And we're very happy to reintroduce the firm that we introduced to the MD in 2019. My question is directed at Mr. Vinod Rai in his capacity as chairman of the board. Mr. Rai, with respect, can I be assured that the board will seriously deliberate this proposal today and confirm the decision in a stock exchange filing immediately after, please? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Sridhar Shivram from Anand. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the update, Mr. Rai and Mr. Kakkar. I'm from Enam Holdings, and we've been a patient shareholder for many years now. So you did mention some of the suggestions that have come, but to us looks like the best and the easiest option would be to look for a buyer for IDFC as it is, because today there are many finance platform companies which have NBFCs, HFCs, and insurance companies, and they would be very interested in looking at IDFC as a company as it is today, with two extremely well-run companies, which includes the AMC and the bank. And of course, with the blessings of Reserve Bank, the option value for these platform finance companies would be to merge their NBFC with the bank at a later date. But given that there are two very well-run companies within IDFC, we think that this is the best option, and the leakage, as you mentioned, in case of a dividend, there is a fairly large amount of leakage in taxation. This would not entail any leakage at all, and the entire company could be sold as is, and many of the issues which you highlighted about the foundation may also not come as an impediment, because the buying company would become the new owner. So that would be my suggestion, that this looks like the best option, and seems like there will be many suitors for a very well-run subsidiaries that IDFC has. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Akhil Dhawan from Locus Investment. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rai, for the lengthy explanation of all that's occurred. I guess had a comment and a question. So while I completely understand that a lot of good work's being done on unwinding the JVs, and that's crucial to being able to reverse merge, in your sort of responses, I would really like to understand why potentially considering a sale of the AMC is not something that can be done in parallel with the unwinding of the JVs, so that we can move that process forward at the same time and not have that be another gating item to a reverse merger at some point. And getting some clarity on that. If there are other options being considered outside of the AMC that are strategic in nature, as you mentioned, per the advisor, that are still on the table at this point, would also like some clarity on that. Or at this point, is it pretty clear in terms of direction that we need to move in? And do we have a commitment in terms of, that getting done? Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Madhusudan Kela from MK Ventures. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rai and the entire board. I really appreciate the comments which are being made in the beginning. And I would like to just, say two things. One, without mincing word, actually it is very, very frustrating now to be the shareholder of IDFC. We have had faith on the board and the management team for too long. Just to give you the context, since 2015, the stock is down 20%, while the bank nifty is up 110%. So you can very well visualize the amount of wealth distraction which has happened for the shareholders. And while I appreciate that all the efforts are being made, but my suggestion is that things now needs to be moved fast, and this needs to be done in a time-bound manner, because there is huge opportunity cost also of the money. And I'm sure the board and the management at some point of time will sympathize with the kind of losses which the shareholders have incurred of the absolute money as well as of the opportunity cost. So I think a lot of suggestions are being made, and a lot of feedback would be received. My humble suggestion is that by the end of this call, there should be some timeline to be given to the shareholder for the sale of the AMC business, because that doesn't require anything, and whatever the tax implications that are, it is for all the shareholders to bear, right? And whatever the value which comes, that is the value which the market is ascribing to the business. So I will humbly urge, being in the market for 30 years, this level of wealth distraction is very rare to see with this kind of competence of management and the board. So please take these suggestions of all the stakeholders, and let's have a timely solution to the value creation for IDFC shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Linesh from Airline Consultants. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So this query was relating to the redesignation of the chairman as a non-independent director from an independent director. So the concern here is that we as shareholders have not received enough information relating to the process and the manner in which this decision was taken. Since there was an independent director resignation, a letter has not been uploaded to the stock exchanges, a letter was not made available to the shareholders. Also, the process in which the nominations committee has come up with this decision, because the chairman himself was a member of the nominations committee. So therefore, he must have been conflicted out of this decision, and the remaining two members have recommended this decision to the board. So whether it is the chairman who has offered his services and an extension of his services in view of his expiring term, or whether it's the board that has requested the chairman to continue, these are aspects that the shareholders must be made cognizant of. These are aspects that the shareholders should be aware of. But unfortunately, there are no filings or no disclosures that have been made to the shareholders, and the not uploading of the resignation letter of an independent director is in fact something that contravenes the listing regulations. So we were very surprised at the manner in which this has been carried out. So any additional information on this issue will be really helpful.
Thank you. The next participant is Rajiv Pathak from GC Holdings. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I would, repeat upon the points, told by Mr. Kela and the previous speakers. It's been 6 years, and if you see, we've got 2 shares for every 1 shares held in IDFC Bank. But the other part of the share, our value has technically, the holding company discount has gone to as high as 70%. So on almost 50% of our money, we have suffered a 70% holding company discount, plus there is no encashment of the AMC. So having all our previous speakers have said, so I'm not going to repeat, what I would request the board that this is an exuberant time in the capital markets, and I would have no doubt that the AMC would fetch at least close to 750 million, and this is a price which is in par with the deals which are currently happening or the IPOs of companies which are coming. We should encash our AMC at the earliest and figure out to reward the shareholders. And the second is that on a priority basis, engage with the bank to merge or create a structure where we become direct owners of the IDFC Bank. As a shareholder of IDFC, we are suffering a massive loss. I think the key is not if we will do, it is when we will do, and I don't think the luxury of time is there with the IDFC board anymore. But having said that, thanks a lot. This was the first time IDFC board came, and I would thank Mr. Vinay Rai for taking this lead, and I'm very, very confident that the board and the management of IDFC will heed to the request of all minority shareholders so that the true value of our holdings is seen after a good 6 long years. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Rajiv Agrawal from Doordarshi Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks a lot for the call. I think I will voice something similar that other investors have talked about. I think the biggest negative surprise of IDFC has been the time it has taken to unlock the value for the shareholder. So it's one thing to know that there are 2 different or 3 different paths available, but the fact that we are still having a presentation in the AGM about what path to take just shows that we did not spend enough time figuring out the best opportunity rather than and continuously just extending the timeline. I think for investors who have been invested in that stock, I think it is high time that a decision is made and then executed in a time-bound manner. So that is what I will request. I think different investors have talked about the different paths, but what is really important is a time-bound execution on a path that we choose and not delay it any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Mr. VP Rajesh from Banyan Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity. And I appreciate Mr. Rai giving us the full backgrounds for the delays, etc. I will just echo what Mr. Kela said and Rajiv just said before me, that the delay has been too much, and we fail to understand why the sale of AMC cannot be proceeded in parallel while we wind up the foundation or we explore the reverse merger with the bank. So I request the board to clarify this particular point, that why these two processes or three processes cannot be run in parallel. And secondly, the whole issue, as Rajiv was saying, I also agree. I've been an M&A banker in my past life. I don't understand why all the options need to be presented at the AGM. I think that's board's and management's role to decide what is best for the shareholders as they deem it fit, and then move forward on that particular path. So it baffles me that we are going to have another presentation at the AGM, and then I'm not sure if you're going to be asking us to actually vote on which path to go forward. I think it's just a lot of delay and unnecessary steps. I think you guys should decide how this discount that has been there for the longest time in the public market can be narrowed as best as possible, keeping the tax efficiency in mind. And Mr. Kakkar has been on record. If you go back and read all the transcripts, you will see he has been making this point over and over. So it just again, disturbs me that we are going to have another presentation by the advisor. I think the board needs to just make a call and stand behind it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Deep Master from One of Financial Consultants. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I think most of the points have been repeated by all the earlier speakers. Would just request, strict timelines on this one and possibly the best structure, because it should have been by now almost a done decision on part of the board. It can't be, gyrating on so many pending issues, including foundation. This should have been possibly been closed a long time back. And if you can share firm timelines, because we have had precedents, two other entities were also subjugate to similar timelines, and they have done the necessary of dismantling and taking decisions very fast. So it is quite perplexing why we couldn't have done the same. By this time, we should have frozen it and also possibly found alternates just in case, the foundation thing was a stumbling block. So request the management to, stick to very urgent timelines and ensure that, the minority shareholders don't suffer anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Morty from ICICI Prudential AMC. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. We have been patient shareholders with you for long. But sir, we would really want you to start the process of selling the IDFC Ltd simultaneously, along with everything that's taken the JV and should not be late. I believe the earlier timeline of the taking JV was March 22. I didn't know that you were expecting some delay here. So that is actually surprising to me. We would also be open to any other tax efficient strategic decision which the advisors have suggested to you, but we would want that you finish it in a time-bound manner, and it would be really helpful if this call you can give us some next time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Nikhil from ICICI Prudential Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. I hope I'm audible. So one of the, I understand that this whole unwinding can't happen till we are able to unwind the foundation. I just thought of one suggestion. I'm not sure how much possible, but can we demerge the two entities, one with AMC and foundation, and the other is the stake which we hold in the bank, and then reverse merge the stake in the bank so that at least we don't need to wait for the whole unwinding of the selling of the AMC and unwinding of this foundation. So with this part, if it can be done quickly, then it could be a faster way of unlocking the value for everyone. Now, I'm not sure what would be the right model, whether to remove AMC and foundation from IDFC Limited and list them separately, or to keep the IDFC as it is, and or to remove the stake of the bank into a separate company and reverse merge that one. So which one would be much easier and faster? I'm not sure of that one, but one of the ways could be this, so that at least all of us don't need to wait for that unlocking of value for the banking state. The AMC in the meanwhile can get sold, even if it remains listed. The value unlocking, I'm sure, could happen on the markets itself once it is listed on its own. So that would be one suggestion from our end. Masumi has already spoken just ahead of me, so thanks over here.
Thank you. Next participant is Pritesh Vora from Mission Holdings. Please go ahead.
Sir, it has been, thank you very much. I am audible. I reiterate some of our earlier participants' agony over the IDFC. What I want to understand is why you were knowing 2 years back that foundation is an issue, so why the steps have not been initiated 2 years back about the foundation. Second thing I want to understand is why we are still haggling on, why we are inviting suggestion from shareholders in AGMs. This has been down and dusted long before. The best option which looks to me right now is sell AMC and buy back those IDFC shares or money of AMC, and then reverse merger with IDFC First Bank. These are my suggestions. I appreciate the opportunity you have provided to shareholder on this forum, and I'm sure under Vinod Rai leadership, we will come out with the right solution urgently. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next participant is Kamal Shah from Paras Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I would like to know what is the valuation of this IDFC Foundation and why we were waiting for so long to close down IDFC Foundation. After we got the approval from RBI, it's frustrating. Now we are waiting for IDFC Foundation's closing down. So what were we doing from last 2-3 years? In your annual report, we are seeing 2022-06 deadline and all. Why wait still for one more year? We really don't understand. And also, I would like to know what is the current valuation of AMC business as per the management. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Abhishek Mehta from Island. Please go ahead.
Good morning. I manage capital on behalf of foreign investors in India, and in the past, management has assured us that the holding company will collapse and we'll get shares of IDFC First Bank. That's the premise why we invested in IDFC Limited. The AMC has to be sold in order to collapse. A lot of time has passed and nothing has really been done. So there's clearly, as you can see, a disconnect between what we, the shareholders, want versus what the board has done. The time is now to execute. But please give us a definitive timeline of the collapse of the holding company, and not 1 year, but the next quarter, next 2 quarters. That's very important. And, another option is before you decide to reverse merge, you can run an option process for the 36% of our holding, as some of the earlier speakers have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Nilesh Shah from Envision Capital. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think the simplest possibility is to basically just distribute the shares of the AMC and the bank to the respective shareholders of IDFC Ltd. This will facilitate a listing of the IDFC AMC business as well, and then deal with the foundation in due course. So I think this is a pretty much simple kind of a suggestion. If this has tax implications for the shareholders in their hands, so be it. Let the shareholders deal with the tax issue if at all they have to face that. But I think the two simplest things are to just distribute these shares to the respective shareholders of IDFC Ltd. And second is, please bring a sense of urgency in all of this. You've mentioned that the management team has been reduced to 6 people, but what is the cost still of running this management team? And I think it'd be important for the board to kind of look into this matter, introspect, and say that can we still afford an operating cost for this management team? So these are my suggestions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next participant is Neha from Shubham Ventures. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead, ma'am. You're on.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Are you able to hear me? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Sir, 2 to 3 questions from my end. Once the RBI has given us a permission, this news was such an exciting news, but we didn't saw any presentation, nor the concall was there. Second is, when we are expecting the merchant banker or the investment banker appointment for the AMC, that is also being delayed. And third is, we want a clean roadmap of the AMC sale as well as the merger process. Because we are delaying outcome, but outcome we are just awaiting. Since last 4 to 5 years, we are just a holder of a shareholder, but we are not getting the outcome of it. And last question is, I would request from all the participants as well as from the shareholders that we are looking for a good corporate governance from the IDFC side. Really, we are all the patient shareholders and we are waiting the best positive outcome from it. And we want the timeline from it. And one more last thing is from my end is, that every shareholder would be giving the suggestion. We want at least board execution as well as the implementation. That is my main suggestion. We want board to execute fast, implement fast, and reward things to the shareholders in any form, whatever it is, be it dividend, be it shareholder, be it shares. Thank you for it.
Thank you. The next participant is Rishendra Goswami from Lotus Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking my question. I think my question was if you could help us understand or just elaborate upon that why is it not possible to get the AMC sale process started in parallel to, unwind of the JV as well as the foundation, because we were pretty proactive in selling out the alternative securities, etc. So, I think all the shareholders have expressed their concern regarding the delay in AMC sale process. So it would be helpful if you could just elaborate upon why not run the AMC sale process in parallel to everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Jigar from Vyas Ventures. Please go ahead.
Hi. Hello. Thank you very much for the kind of explanation which was given by the chairman. I had actually written a letter to the board in 2019 and I had a meeting with the MD and where he had explained the complex process of how IDFC had been given the banking license and the kind of issues that they were facing. Now what we have seen over these last 2 years is that most of the other things which were being said were the hurdles in the way have been already solved. What we were told since last 2-3 conference calls is that the only thing is that the question of when and not the question of if, of what the RBI would give us the green signal. Now, since we were aware of all these things, all the other aspects could have been already solved. So be it foundation, we can offer that stake back to the state governments, right? Or we can take that stake into the IDFC bank. since it's the same management. So it doesn't require us to have an advisor or what we feel is the kind of time which is being taken. So that could have been solved very easily. IDFC AMC, so for us, it is maybe not the competence of the management, but because of the good run in the markets, the value which could have been less than 2,000 crores maybe 1.5 years back, we might get more than 5,000 crores now. And if we again don't take a decisive time-bound manner of that, we may again collapse that value again. And it's not a very good performance from our side because we have already paid 1,000 crores for this AMC. So over a 10-year period, if it was to end 1.5 years back, the value was just 2,000 crores. And now since the markets are having a good run, and we have also done well on both the aspects, the fixed income and the equity side, we may get more than 5,000 crores. I think it should be done on a very immediate basis and get the thing out of the thing, and then we can just reverse merge the thing. Another aspect is now since the RBI is not in a way, or it is in our favor of doing whatever value unlocking needs to be done for the shareholders, we can just demerge the IDFC Bank shareholding from IDFC Limited and then merge with the IDFC Bank. So then it becomes much simpler because now we are not required to be the promoters or the shareholders of IDFC Bank. So what is really frustrating is that the kind of indecisiveness where the board says that we will take up the proposal to the AGM for the shareholders to decide, I think that doesn't sound very good because it's for the shareholders are basically entrusting you with the duty for, or it's for you to decide of what is in their favor, and we are just with you. So I think it's the role of board to decide and not the shareholders to give the suggestions. We can give the suggestions, but I think it's to be executed by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next participant is Anurag Jain from ART Ventures. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the opportunity and really appreciate this exercise by the board and the management to engage with the shareholders. So we've been shareholders of the company for about 5 years now, and at the cost of repetition, on the holding company level, we spent about 170-180 crores over the last 5 years, and there has been no positive development on aspects which ideally should have been, fructified by now. And as shareholders, we've lost a massive opportunity on value creation. So we would really appreciate a definite timeline and a clear roadmap by the board and the management on the steps that we need to take now.
Thank you. Next participant is Rajiv Malhotra from Skanda Investments. Please go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you for the detailed responses. I think a lot of responses from well-meaning shareholders have already been communicated to the board. Something which is of slight bother is that when RBI has allowed us to be a non-promoter, so IDFC can be classified as non-promoter, have we moved to change the classification with the bank? Because IDFC First Bank still shows IDFC as the promoter. Second, as Mr. Sunil Kakkar has resigned from the IDFC First board, do we have any representation there, or we don't propose to have any? Thirdly, while it is not coming from the IDFC board, but in all public interactions, Mr. Vaidyanathan, the CEO of IDFC First Bank, keeps on denying any talk or proposal of any kind of merger. If that be the case, I think what has been suggested by INAM and and Envision Capital of selling off as is or distributing it as is and let the shareholders take care of their own tax burdens would be the better proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Siddharth Swami from IIVC. Please go ahead.
It's actually Siddharth Thomas. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Rai, for your candid comments. I was with Mr. Martin of Deobab 3 years ago when we had actually presented to Mr. Kakkar various options at our own expense all of these options that were discussed. And Mr. Thakkar proceeded to give us the same explanation that you did today on the call. All of the issues with the foundation were well known, well documented. I cannot understand why the foundation was not, why the unwinding of the foundation had not started 3 years ago when we knew that this was where we have to end. Surprisingly, for having 6 employees, Mr. Thakkar gets paid 2 crore bonus in 2019, 2020. For doing what exactly, I have no idea. I would really like to understand when the board is trying to hold the management accountable for what is happening. I mean, we can look forward and move on, but I would really like to understand when the board, how this is being allowed to happen. And how, and what we as shareholders are meant to do. So, echoing what the other panelists have said, I would really think that if we don't get something in a time-bound manner, then we really don't have a choice but to ask for an EGM and to remove the current management. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Zafar from Kalmi Capital Partners. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. Just a couple of observations. Mr. Rai, you mentioned you've spoken to shareholders in the past and you had interactions. As far as I can tell, every time you've never delivered on what you have committed to in those, so it's very difficult to understand why you will now deliver. And the second issue is we see the reappointment is for 2 years and 3 years for directors. Does this mean this is the timeline you are thinking of? I mean, it seems at the moment everything is done to slow things down. And meanwhile, directors earn fees, management earns remuneration, and shareholders are suffering. I think the frustration of everyone is pretty obvious, and to blame the management, but also the board should take responsibility for the poor performance and at some point stand up and be counted. Mentioning the foundation is like the tail wagging the dog. I mean, after 5 years, if we now come to this, it really is almost laughable. And finally, we've got a situation where we are the largest shareholder in the bank. Yes, we behave as if the bank controls us for all practical purposes. I think we need to think about these issues very seriously, and time is not our friend. We need to move very fast. Trying to give a presentation at the AGM will only confuse matters because we'll have 20 different views. Boards have to take decisions and move forward. That's my humble request. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Jigar Walia from OHM Group. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for this call. Just a suggestion to please follow this pre-AGM call with a post-AGM call at a very short interval so that we are updated of the positive progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, we'll take 3 more participants. The next participant is Saurabh Penekar. Please go ahead.
Hi. I'm echoing the similar sentiments expressed by so many other shareholders. I first just want to know, are this management just taking these suggestions or beginning to answer it as a part of this call, or will this be answered as a part of EGM?
Thank you. The next participant is Sanjay Pandit from 1729 Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm glad that the board is on this call. In my interactions with the company representatives over the past few years, as well as on public calls, there appears to have been a commitment to unlocking value by, number 1, selling the AMC, and number 2, reverse merging with IDFC First Bank. This is precisely why we invested in the company. In addition, the company on at least one public call stated that it would have completed this reverse merger process, which is the second of the 2 actions, by December 2021. We know that there's been no official update to this guidance, right? And yet, a full year after IDFC Bank turned 5, shockingly little progress has been made, right? Not a single bank share has been sold. It could have been, right? A formal AMC exit process hasn't even commenced. It should have been long ago, right? And certain other legacy entities, obviously, notably the foundation, has not been cleaned up, right? Now compare this to, say, Equitas, smaller company with a smaller management team, etc., the holding company. Their bank only turns 5 a full year after HDFC First Bank, and they've already disclosed terms of the reverse merger as of more than a month ago, right? IDFC's lack of progress on winding things up has been very disappointing, right? I think I speak for all shareholders when I say this level of inaction is unacceptable, right? Time is money for all shareholders, including for the government of India, which pays a hefty interest on its debt obligation, right? So our IRRs matter, right? Now for my question. Can those of you on the board of directors who are not committed to the strategy of, number one, immediate sale of AMC, and number two, reverse merger, please identify yourselves by name right now, right? Maybe in addition to introducing yourselves, also explain the basis of your reservation at this point, as well as what alternative you propose and by when you expect it can be executed, right? Please let us know today on this call who you are, right? Why are these, reservations showing up, and why does a consultant have to be hired of all things so long after the obvious route, or what everybody thought was obvious, was agreed upon? That's my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next participant is Aditya Shah from Vikram Advisory. Please go ahead.
Sir, in addition to the points or concerns already voiced by the previous shareholder speakers regarding the delay, destruction of value, and indecisiveness of the management, I would like to put a pointed question to our new independent director, which is Mr. Anil Singhvi, who's sort of the poster child of corporate, activism and shareholder activism. And how does he view, our MD taking a similar compensation to an operating subsidiary, which is a bank, MD taking a similar kind of compensation with no progress of the last 5 years? It is really surprising that, both of the MDs are paid similarly, with one dealing with the daily operating company and one dealing with nothing. So I would like to have his views public, because since he's commenting on every other company where he's not a director, how does he view his opinion on a company which he is a director of? And other concerns, obviously, like the other shareholders' voice is like, you guys should definitely give us a time when you will complete or create unlocking of the shareholder value. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Dilip Kumar Lucky. Please go ahead.
Yeah. My question is same only. We have invested long before a huge sum, but still we are not getting anything dividend. And company is proposing to increase this things, commission and all these things, payment of commission to non-executive directors and this. Why these expenses are? Thanks.
Thank you. The next participant is Jayesh Vora from Meenakshi Mercantile Ltd. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Rai, on the update and the background which you have given. But again, there has been a long and patient wait for the shareholders. And one example which I would like to cite here is the Equitas and Ujjivan management, which has been a very efficient management, and have timely approached the RBI for the reverse merger with their SFBs well before 5-year period was over. And for IDFC, that 5 year was over in the month of September 20. So again, a request to the board to share a definitive timeline for dismantling the holding company structure. And in the present market scenario, the sale of AMC vertical through an auction process would be simple and easy, I would say, and it would fetch great value for the shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Arun Nahar from Alpha Enterprises. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. All the participants before me have raised all valid points, and I think the collective wisdom of these people would be far better than all the consultants that IDFC is wanting to appoint or attempting to appoint or has appointed. My simple question is, to me it looks so obvious what needs to be done. Is this being done deliberately to delay the process? Is there a vested interest in delaying this process, either at the bank or at IDFC? I'm sorry, everybody is diplomatic and not asking questions straight up. But to me, it looks as if there is an internal sabotage into it. Can the board kindly investigate, especially Mr. Sanghvi and Mr. Vinod Rai, who have impeccable reputation? Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Amitabh Singh from Supreme Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, Mr. Rai, and the other members of the board. The specific question really is on compliance. Now that we are two independent entities, is there any committee inside which will show us all the communication with the bank? Because the timeline seems very curious that the bank shows an aggressive option to grow the retail assets, and here we are sitting with debating how to return the cash of a proposed AMC sale which hasn't happened. It would be very comforting if every quarter all communication with a bank, which is a subsidiary and an independent entity, be governed by a new director or a committee, such that it's not the bank tail wagging the holdco dog. And I agree with everything else the other shareholders have said. Thank you.
Thank you. The next participant is Anshu from Origin. Please go ahead.
Hi. How does the board address the concern that there is an apparent conflict of interest in this deed? So the primary beneficiary of delay is the management, which just get paid for a longer period of time, and the shareholders suffer.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, due to time constraint, we'll take the last speaker. The next participant is L.R. Srivastava from Gagandeep Credit Capital. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the very detailed explanation and by the management, and also very interactive session. In line with the several thoughts already shared, we as shareholders would request clear and unambiguous milestones and timelines on your own stated objective of dismantling the holdco. If you can share the same with the investors, that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last speaker. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Vinod Rai for his response and closing comments.
Thank you. This is Vinod Rai. I have very diligently not only heard but noted the suggestions, the observations, and the recommendations that have been made by the shareholders. And believe me, we value them. I certainly will give a lot of credence and credibility to what you have suggested. Now, I will two issues which have been very pointedly asked, which is number one, resignation of the chairman, and what was the reappointment process. It will be unfair for me to explain it, so I will request the NRC chair to explain that. That is Mr. Ajay Sondi. He will come into it. Number two, direct query has been asked of Mr. Anil Singhvi. Mr. Singhvi is on the call, and he will respond to that also. But one thing very clear, I get your frustration, I get the issue about delay, I get the issue about destruction of value and the inaction, or whatever you call it. And you have at the least made it clear to us that the board should execute, and there is no need for a presentation to the AGM. We will not make the presentation, but Anyway, I will explain all that. First, may I request Mr. Ajay Sondi to explain the resignation process? There was a pointed question on that. Ajay, would you?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rai. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that question. We'll ask that question. Mr. Rai's term as an independent director was, his second term as an independent director was coming to an end. The board of IDFC and the NRC felt that it is in the best interest of the company and the shareholders if we were able to ensure continuity of Mr. Rai's tenure as chairman, especially in this critical final phase of the company in terms of unlocking shareholder value. And therefore, the board and the NRC requested Mr. Rai to continue. The exact technical process of Mr. Rai's resignation and his appointment was discussed and extensively and consulted with legal counsel and was conducted fully in accordance with all extant regulations and corporate governance processes. And finally, Mr. Rai's appointment that has been made by the board as chairman, as a non-executive director now, is coming up for confirmation by shareholders that required under the Companies Act at the forthcoming AGM. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. Mr. Anil Singhvi. Anil, would you like to respond to the query which was specifically directed towards you?
Yes, Mr. Raj. Thank you so much. I think the question which was raised was Mr. Sunil Kakkar's remuneration. And I just want to remind the shareholders that his appointment was made, I think, in 2019 or 20, and this is up till October 2022. So since his reappointment is not under consideration right now, it will be unfair for me to comment on this, that why was he appointed, because I was not on the board then. But definitely when it is coming for reappointment again, this will be considered at par with other remuneration of other managing directors or comparable companies. So I'm very clear on that. I think our yardstick is still and remains to be seen how in next 12 months' time we unlock the value, so this person may not arise. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, and thank you, Ajay. Now, shareholders, you have expressed your disappointment in a large number of ways, and believe me, I not only sympathize with you, I totally empathize with you. You have been very loyal to the company. You have continued with our shareholding for a long period of time, and hopefully we will be able to fulfill our fiduciary responsibility or trust that you have in us. You have made a large number of suggestions. You have indicated a very clear dismantling process, and you have also said that the dismantling of the foundation should have been done earlier. As I mentioned to you, I'm not trying to be defensive on any of these things, but that process had started 3 years back. Considering the fact that these are two state governments that we are dealing with, but I get the message very loud and clear about what you have said. In fact, Mr. Martin has even given us an ultimatum. I take that ultimatum. Inam has suggested that we need to have two companies. Believe me, that was an option which we have considered, but it requires the blessing of the RBI, as you have yourself pointed out. Each one of the options that you have pointed out has been considered by us, and as I mentioned to you earlier, we are at the cusp of taking a decision. Now, all that I would like to say is, each one of your queries, we have called a board meeting immediately after this. Each one of your queries, we will address. We will discuss in the board. We still have a week's time before the AGM. Hopefully in the AGM, I will come out with a set of suggestions. I am not going to give you a timeline by which we will be able to finish the processes, but I will certainly give you a time when we will start the processes, because, finishing is not within our control only. But the one that we are addressing most urgently is about the foundation, and hopefully we will get that also. Board directors, you have said 3 years. Do you want to drag it 3 years? We certainly don't want to. But 3 years is been a term in the IDFC, so that's how we said for 3 years. Company expenses, we have cut it down to the bare minimum, and Mr. Singhvi has just explained to you what we propose to do or when issues come up before us. All that I want to assure you is that we will address each one of your issues urgently with the kind of sincerity it deserves. I have taken your frustration on board, and I will come back. There is neither the time or the details before me that I can address each of them and give you replies just now. But when we meet for the AGM, I will give you an update on each of these. And hopefully, we will have a roadmap. As you have yourself pointed out, we will not go in for a presentation by the board. We would rather use presentation by the advisor. We would rather use that time to explain to you if we have a roadmap and how we want to implement that roadmap. So for the time being, I just want to assure you that we have taken all your suggestions on board. We empathize with you in terms of the frustration that you expressed. But RBI guidelines did tie us down. But I will be able to explain to you in the course of the AGM about the kind of roadmap that we are hoping to commence. And as I mentioned to you, I cannot give you a time limit within which we will finish. So that's where we stand today. And hopefully, we will be able to address each one of your concerns. Maybe there have been some credibility issues that some assurances have been given, which have not been adhered to. I'm really not very cognizant of those assurances which were given. We have had only, at least I have had only one minor interaction with some of the shareholders. That was done in January this year. But we are addressing ourselves to the task at hand, and I assure you that I will give you some kind of a roadmap when we meet in the AGM. I hope you will bear with us till then, and we will get back to you in due course of time. I think we will end with that. Thank you very much for the time, the patience, and the perseverance that you have shown. Your suggestions have been very well received, and hopefully we will give them the due attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On behalf of IDFC Ltd, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us. You may now disconnect your line. Thank you.